Hello, and welcome to the Warhammer Film Club, where I am joined every episode by a guest to talk about amazing films that have intersected with the history of Warhammer and Games Workshop, and also with our own hobby experiences. Today, I am joined by Chris Peach. Peachy, how are you doing, mate? You're right.
I am great. Thank you for having me on the show, Jordan. I appreciate it. And thank you for opening my eyes to new and wonderful movies.
Well, thank you for joining. You know, we've got loads of stuff to talk about here, I think, because we're going to be talking about Brotherhood of the Wolf. So a 2001 French sort of, I mean, it's a genre-bending kind of like action, historical, period, drama, mystery, horror. And then we're also going to be talking about Flash Gordon from 1980, and I'm very excited to chat about that.
Favorite movie of all time.
Really? Well, we'll save it. We'll get into it. But I mean, just generally, are you a big film watcher? Do you watch loads of movies and stuff?
I try to. I mean, I tend to find that I've got like go-tos when I'm like hobbying or like working. Like if I'm doing like some filming, like painting some stuff, like some, you know, if I'm doing like a bit of like a how to paint sort of section for one of my videos, I just have like a movie in the background whilst I'm doing it. Usually a movie I've seen countless times, so I don't have to keep looking up because my mind's eye can fill it out. So usually go-tos for that, like Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, Commando. So such a plethora of like Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, Commando, yeah, classics. Conan as well, like stuff like that, stuff that I've I've seen loads and loads of times. But yeah, I do watch a lot. I get lots of recommendations, not always get a chance to watch some. Years ago, probably won't go too much into it. Someone recommended watching The Ninth Gate that has Johnny. I call it Johnny Depp's The Ninth Gate.
Oh, yeah.
I I'm a completionist, so if I start watching a movie, I feel I have to finish it. And this movie went on for so long, and I was not enjoying it. It was just like so not a lot happened in like this 3 hour long movie.
Sure.
And it's the only Johnny Depp film I've never really enjoyed. But I had to get to the end, and at the end of it, I was like, I'm never going to get these 3 hours of my life back.
It's an odd one, isn't it? That it's like a supernatural
Yeah, yeah.
religious guy. He's like an author or something, or
I
a
think so.
librarian, maybe.
I think they could have cut like a good 2 hours out of it, and then it would have been a good film. I think it just went on for too long. I think that was the thing, and maybe I was getting a bit like sleepy. But yeah, that's the only film I've. Normally, I enjoy most movies. If I go to the cinema, I rate every movie as like a 7 out of 10 because it's like the experience of going to the movie, that build up. You know, even if the movie ends up being trash, I'm still like I was excited to watch it. I enjoyed the process. So I always judge things 7 out of 10. Then they get
That's
a slightly
very
higher score.
generous. Yeah,
I know.
but that's a nice way to think about it as well. If it's all part of the experience of seeing it, you know, you just happen
Yeah,
to have
yeah,
watched it, and then you could sort of explore the content in a different way later on.
yeah, exactly. I mean, Ninth Gate got a 5 out of 10 though. That's the only reason I got a
Oh, it
five.
was low
Yeah,
score then in that
yeah,
case.
I know. I know.
Well, this first film we're chatting about, so this is Brotherhood of the Wolf. So,
Mm,
yeah, it came out in 2001. It's a French production. It's in French, and it is about a basically the actual true story of a beast that is roving around Gévaudan in France, and it is in like the 1600s, 1700s, something around then.
yeah,
And it's this monster that is killing the townsfolk, killing peasants and stuff like that. And they don't know what it is. Is it a giant cat that's escaped? Is it some kind of wolf? Is it something else, something supernatural? Obviously, you know, the real story, I don't think it's been properly solved as a mystery.
yeah,
It's like one of these cryptid mysteries. So no one quite knows. But in this version of the story, the king sends his gardener to investigate, and he brings his best mate, who is a Native American Indian, who they had met in the wars in New France, and
yeah.
together they basically go on the hunt for this beast. But there's a lot of like political intrigue and stuff like that as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it adds weirdly when I was watching it, because I know you said it's got like, it was inspired by some people that were like into like I think it was more time references and stuff like that.
I think there's some more time stuff
Yeah,
here.
and
Yeah.
I can
Well,
see it. I can see it. Well, I was watching it with Mrs. Peach yesterday as well, and she was like, "I'm not seeing the Warhammer things." I was like, "I am," but that's because you've probably not watched all like the extra town crier sort of articles for like
yeah.
more time and stuff. But for me, it had strong Silver Bayonet vibes, and
Right.
being quite into Silver Bayonet at the moment, I was just like, "Oh, this is giving me lots of ideas for like scenarios for that." But yeah, I do remember watching it now when I was in retail, because a few people mentioned it, but I didn't realize it was because now when I look back, it is kind of like a, it's telling a historical story, but I didn't realize it was actually based on truth, which was I just thought it was just part of the
Oh,
story. Like, the
yeah,
guy's like, yeah, this happened because it's been narrated by
yeah,
I forget his name. Is he known as the Marquis or something like that?
yeah. The Marquis, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
He sort of survives and is during the French Revolution is telling the story of what had happened
yes,
in his
yeah,
youth.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because that Liz is really into like a like French Revolution stuff because she's read loads of books on it. She's like, "Is this before?" I was like, "I think it is. I think it's after the 7 Years' War, before like the War of Independence." So France didn't do so well in like Canada and the Americas and
mm.
whatever. But yeah, it was just I really enjoyed it. There was lots of like fun little things, and I was a bit like at first like, "Oh, this is very supernatural," but then it was Liz that spotted the big cat under the armor. I was like,
Yeah, because it starts off as like a
smart.
proper horror film, really. It's like,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
beast is stalking the land. You don't really see it, so you don't really know what they're dealing with. But you do see the sort of gruesome, like, aftermath of its attacks and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
there's the investigations that are taking place to try and work out what it is. And the gardener, so a lot of the people, the characters who were in it were real people.
Yeah.
I'm assuming a lot of artistic license has been
Mm.
taken with whatever really happened that we don't fully know about.
Yeah.
But so I think the gardener is a real person. His best friend is completely fictional though, so
Yeah.
he wasn't
Manny.
real.
Is it
But
Manny? Is it
yeah,
Manny?
Manny, who's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like
That's it.
a martial artist played by Mark Dacascos, who famous martial arts movie star,
Of course. I thought
is
I recognized him.
learned French for the role and sort of
Yeah.
went over and did it. Very, very cool. But they're investigating, and there's some cool stuff where he's like, he's using proper scientific method, and he's like measuring
Mm.
the bite marks to work out how big the jaw must be and whether or not that could possibly exist.
Yeah.
And then there's a very because all of the locals, all of the aristocrats around the place are all convinced it's supernatural. They think it's to do with like religion and God and
Yeah.
whether or
Yeah.
not the Catholic Church has been betrayed and all that sort of stuff. But then he's introducing this stuff of like he brings out a furry
A
trout.
fish. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Which was
he
like,
claims to have found, and everyone's like, "Wow, this is." At first, there's some skepticism, but then they believe it because he tells a great story, and then he
yeah.
reveals that it's actually completely fake,
Yeah.
made by a taxidermist,
Yeah.
and that is like him making the point that maybe it's just a big cat
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is
Yeah,
a smart move, actually. I know. I think one of the characters kind of sees through that quite early on.
he does. Yeah, Vincent
Um,
Cassel is very, very
yeah.
good.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's some stuff about him because I was a bit like, he seems dodgy. What's with the missing hand and stuff like that? There's
Sure.
something I picked up actually, and I don't know if it was intentional or and I really because I like colors, Jordan. I like
Hmm.
painting things. I like colors, and I noticed when they're doing the meeting, when they're having that meal, and he's talking about the trout, the furry trout.
Hmm.
A lot of the characters are all in red, apart from himself, Manny, the father of the daughter, and the
Huh?
Marquis are all in white or
Right.
like light grays, and I was like, is this symbolic of something? Because they're like good looking, they seem like maybe good down to earth characters, whereas all the others are in red. Is there a reason for that? And then when you look at, I mean, it's kind of like probably the uniform as well, but all the French soldiers near the end, they're all
Hmm.
in like grays and whites against like people in
Of
reds and
course they
stuff
are.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, interesting. I don't know if that was like a
That's really
just
interesting. Yeah, I bet you're right about that.
yeah, it might be part of like the sort of like easy to identify, like almost what is it when you uh
Like a bit of foreshadowing and
yeah, forward shadowing a little bit of that, but
yeah.
also like making it quite easy to identify like yeah, these guys are goodies, these guys are baddies. Classics. That's what as a kid, that's what I always used to ask my dad. Which are the goodies, which are the baddies? Got quite complicated in certain like movies, but
Sure.
um
Yeah. Well, you're talking about 40K, for instance. Yeah.
yeah, there's
Of
none of
conversation.
them. But
Yeah, but
no, it was
Vincent Cassel
interesting.
is amazing in that scene because yeah, you're right. He sees through all of the ruse.
Mm,
He instantly knows that it's fake,
yeah,
and he's quite acerbic and just such a. It was the first film I think I ever saw with him in it, and he was
mm,
just so good. Um, and he's yeah, so he has lost an arm in the wars,
yeah,
and see that like weighs heavily on him. He's quite bitter, and but
yeah.
he's also an aristocrat, so he's also quite got quite a an aristocratic bearing, and you can't quite tell whether he's a good guy or a bad guy, I think, through
Yeah,
those
yeah,
early
definitely. Yeah,
phases, because he
yeah,
sort of seems like a bit of a jerk, but maybe he's a jerk on the right side of things.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But if you go with my color theory, it was clearly a baddie from
well,
the
yeah,
off,
well,
wasn't
you instantly, yeah, you sold it straight away. But like, he's
it?
got an amazing gun that he's had modified so he can fire it
Yes.
one-handed, like a musket that sort of wraps around his arm, around
Yeah,
the elbow,
yeah.
so that he can steady it to shoot, which I thought was very, very cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's seeing like all the like I've got a couple of highway models. So at the very start, when you first see Manny and what's the guy's name? Is it Frunsack?
Yeah, that's right, Fronsac.
Yeah, like they just look badass. And
Yeah,
there's this weird moment where there's like two, well, you suspect two villagers are being like chased out of a town. One's like a witch, one's like an old gentleman. They've been beaten up by these guys dressed as ladies. And you're like, what's going on here? What's
yeah,
this? Is like a weird cult? Is this like a weird gang? But later on, it pans out that they're dressed as ladies to try and lure the beast.
yeah,
But they are part of like some hired muscle, aren't they, of like the local area?
yeah.
But I was just like, I didn't pick up on that straight away. I was just like, is this like some weird sort of like French cult where they paint their faces white, put like big red
Yeah,
like blusher on it, and this, that, and the other?
I love
Uh,
that. That feels so. That's one of the things because it's quite a tenuous relationship here between Brotherhood of the Wolf and Games Workshop. I've sort
yeah,
of fudged the numbers a little bit for this one because I feel like there's a real sort of a similar vibe. So it came out in 2001, so like
yeah,
Mordheim was already out, but I think
yeah,
some of the later Mordheim sort of borrows a bit of influence, and
yeah,
we'll
yeah,
get
yeah,
into that. But like those soldiers who are dressed as women with the painted faces and all that sort of stuff, they felt so Blanchian to me. That feels really
yes,
like a
yeah,
John Blanche
yeah, yeah,
illustration of like these
yeah,
soldier guys. And then and then you do go into like a martial arts, slow motion martial arts fight, sort of
yeah,
post Matrix kind of thing, which
yeah.
maybe on. I remember at the time thinking, "Wow, this is amazing." I think now maybe there's a little bit too much slow motion in some of
Yeah,
those
yeah,
fights,
yeah. It's some really
a bit
nice videography
overacted.
for sure.
Yeah.
There's a couple of like scenes where I'm just like, oh, that's an interesting shot. Oh, I quite like that.
Mm,
But I guess for its time as well, maybe that was like quite, which is, I guess when I look back now, because what when I was saying to you, like I got initially when you mentioned Brother of the Wolf, I was getting confused with another film called Death Watch,
mm.
which I because they were both out at the same time, which is why I think I got my head around thinking, oh, is that the World War One one? Death Watch is the World War One. Brotherhood of the Wolf is like obviously like more of a 17th century kind of thing. Um, but yeah, it's like I remember like talking a lot about those movies in the stores and like ideas for like war bands for Inquisitor and like people
Mm.
talking about the Native American Manny Iroquois, I think he was like an
Yeah,
Iroquois
that's right.
tribesman
Yeah.
and stuff. But yeah, I just yeah, there's so many like influences post movie, I guess, for like people in Games Workshop because they were great movies and a lot of customers, staff were into it. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember like people getting really into Blade because the looks, Blade with his big sort of like leather coat was like very sort of inquisitorial looking. It's like,
Sure.
I'm gonna do an Inquisitor or like a member of the inquisitorial team that I'm gonna base off Blade and stuff like The Matrix was quite big then as well. So, but yeah, the videography was, I think, quite ahead of the curve at the time as well. I think when I look back, even now, you like look at it like that's really good
It looks
videography.
nice. Yeah, it's a good looking
Yeah,
film. Obviously, some of the
yeah.
special effects have aged a little bit.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
actual like sets and the costuming and all that sort of stuff, I think looks great still. Like it,
Mm.
even though it's an action horror movie,
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
the stuff that is like, okay, we're gonna have a fancy meal with all the aristocrats arguing or whatever, that still looks really sumptuous and nice and is like lit
yeah,
by
yeah.
candlelight and stuff like that. And there's like a bit when they put together a big hunt to go and try and track down the beast in the forest.
Yes,
All
yeah,
of that
yeah.
stuff I think looks fantastic.
Yeah,
Really, really
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. And the uniforms, I mean, I was like, having a little look at the uniforms, and like they're quite close to the period as well, if
Right.
not bob on. Certainly the French infantry, which is why I was like, they're meant to be in white, sort of like greyish clothing. Because if anyone's ever seen Last of the Mohicans, when the
Mm,
British at Fort William surrender, all the French are in like white, grey kind of like clothing and stuff like that. So it's the same kind of period.
right.
So I was like, yeah, they're quite bob on with the outfits. Maybe there's someone like watching, like, no, 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 the cuffs are wrong, the collars are wrong. I'm like, cool. Napoleonics, I'm pretty bob on with that kind of like War of Independence, Seven
Mm.
Years War, still particularly not au fait with, but kind of like at a glance, you'd be like, looks right.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I know nothing about it. I thought it
yeah,
looked cool, is as far as I
yeah,
would
yeah,
get
yeah.
to that.
And it's stuff like that that I really like when you have like, which is why I get the Silver Bayonet influences because you've got these guys hunting for a monster, but then at the same time there's like a weird cult that starts happening. So
Yeah.
there's like almost like two sort of narratives going on. There's a monster, there's a weird cult. They're trying to like discover it because the king's asked them to. There's like the Catholic Church involved, and then you've got this whole armed force like somewhere
Mm.
that like what's happening with this, and then obviously near the end they come into play a bit more, but that's like a really cool scenario, like the cavalry turns up at the end to help out kind of thing, and that's just given me so many ideas for scenarios and stuff,
Yeah, I think
but
it's
yeah,
very, it lends itself really well to like, okay, we could play a more time game around this. So you could play
yeah,
a full game of Warhammer Fantasy Battle or the old world with it if you want,
yeah.
I think as well.
Well, there
Loads
was a
loads of stuff.
scenario, wasn't there, for more time, which was like
This
the
is it,
beast in the
yeah.
woods. Is
The
it the
thing in
beast
the
in the woods?
woods.
Yeah, thing in the woods. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's like the inspiration for that.
I think
Is
that is
that?
100%. So that's from Town Crier 25. So I think
Yeah,
that that is absolutely drawing on this and saying, that's cool. And then they make
yeah.
the thing in the woods, the miniature, and it looks like Fronsack's drawing, like what he thinks the
Oh,
beast. I think there's
yeah,
some elements of it. I mean, they're not
yeah, yeah.
identical, but there's enough similarity there to
That
I
makes a lot
think
of
sort of
sense.
draw
Yeah,
that connection between the two. And yeah, going back to that opening scene where they're wearing their macs and they've just arrived, like those super high collars and the tricorn
yeah.
hats, and it's raining and it's drab. That feels really more time. That feels really
Yeah,
Warhammer
yeah.
Fantasy to me.
Johan the Knife kind of vibes as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then also, that cult that you mentioned. So all of the sort of, well, the majority of guys in that cult have got these kind of the sort of claw blades
Yes,
that
yeah,
they
yeah,
use, and they're like the
yeah,
way their hair is done, and they're wearing like lots of fur pelts and stuff like that. They look like they could just be a wartime
yeah,
warband to
yeah,
me.
absolutely. Like some weird screwed up Chaos Warband, or even like almost
I think you
Middenheimer-esque
could
as
do
well.
midnight, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Right? They're the sort of on the towards the sort of savage end of things, but
yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
they could be Ulrican sort of cultists.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
no, yeah.
for
No,
sure.
as soon as I started, like, went down, like, initially my brain was like chaos. I was like, no, actually, with those long hairs and the beards and like the stuff, it's very Middenheim, actually. Yeah,
I think
uh,
so. Yeah,
yeah.
but
Whereas all the folks in red, definitely chaos cult, right?
oh
Got to
yes,
be a
100%.
possessed chaos cult. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, completely actually. And then because yeah, you do go into like full, the cultists who are actually behind the attacks. So it starts to become apparent that the beast is a sort of trained lion or big cat of some kind,
mm,
but one
mm.
that's been armored, and they've put
Yeah,
all of these armor and spikes onto it and all this sort of stuff. But before you sort of find out the true origins of it, they introduce almost like a sorcerer, like a chaos sorcerer, like
yes,
this
yeah,
guy, and
yeah,
you only see him in shadow, and you see him from
yeah.
afar a few times, but
With
he's
his
wearing
weird
this.
long hand
Yeah, exactly. He's got like
claws.
clawed
Mm,
hand and all that sort of
yeah,
stuff, and he's got a huge mask with all of this sort of stuff coming out. Like very chaotic, I think that
yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah. Definitely had like chaos sorcerer, dark emissary vibes.
Yes, yes.
Sort of, yeah. He wasn't a nice guy,
No,
you know
no,
that.
not at
Looking
all.
like, oh, and then later on when Fransard gets into the chambers, I think it's, yeah, he gets into the chambers and there's like a bone sword, which later
Yes.
on comes into play. That's then
Yeah.
serrated. That's got like, I think it's razor blade that the Dark Eldar have,
Right.
which like disconnects and becomes almost like a flail and then reconnects as like a solid blade again.
Sure.
So I do wonder if that weapon, because Jez Goodwin designed that when he did The Witches,
Right.
mid, well, I'll say 2010. I can't remember what it was now. All that goes into a blur because so many projects happened during the
Sure.
but I definitely remember working on it quite early on in my career in the studio. And then the Hydra gauntlets. There was the sort of like spear and net, which was very gladiatorial. And then
Right.
this razor blade, which was like flailing around. There was some really nice poses, but then there was like the solid version of it. I wonder if Jez Goodwin might have been inspired by Brother the Wolf for that particular
That's
weapon.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, it
Um,
definitely feels like, because I'm sure anime and all sorts of explored similar things where this sort of the
hmm,
sword, because it's all segmented in the bone sword and then it breaks apart with the chain in
yeah,
between them when it
yeah,
becomes the flail. It felt like a demon weapon,
yeah,
or
yeah,
something of that nature.
yeah.
And absolutely, I think it's probably the same kind of inspirations were informing people who were working on various GW things,
Yeah.
has inspired the guys who were creating this, if not directly.
Yeah.
Because this,
Yeah.
yeah, it absolutely is a great example of that kind of thing. And also the reason I think it's kind of like a demon, it's like a demon sword, is because the sorcerer, who is revealed to actually be the Vincent Cassel character,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's had his arm has sort of regrown, or whatever injury has been sort of healed, even though it's now quite
A bit
gnarled.
manky.
Yeah, yeah. And he's been like strapping it behind his back,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfurls it, and
It's a really weird moment, isn't it, when he unfurls the arm? Because I
yeah,
had an inkling, because like he shows like he's not got an arm, and then you see this like sorcerer with like a weird clawed hand. I was like, that just feels like, I don't know, because he just looks wrong. He just looks like a baddie, and I wonder if it's him. Then I was like, maybe it's like the love interest, Marianne, I think her name is, that Fransard's like into, the brunette, not brunette, auburn-haired lady.
mm,
I was like, maybe could it be her? Maybe it's her. So it starts making me think like all these different characters it could be. But yeah, it ended up being like my initial sort of like, yeah, my gut says you because you just look
yeah.
wrong. You're a wrong un.
He is a wrong un. He's absolutely is a wrong un. But then I quite like that the reveal on the sort of this cult is that more or less everybody, all of the local aristocrats, are
Yeah,
all
yeah,
involved,
that is, yeah,
with the exception of like the love interest.
yeah, yeah,
Like the majority are absolutely behind. Yeah, you know what? This beast is going to kill a load of peasants. We're going to drum up a load of disquiet across the
yeah,
region with the king, and then we're going to start a revolution essentially. And
yeah,
they're like
yeah.
publishing pamphlets and books that are
Yes,
like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
the
yeah.
beast is like some kind of demonic vengeance for the king's failings and all that sort of stuff. So there's quite an interesting little political subplot going on
Yeah,
behind,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
even to the extent that that leads the king to send the army in when the gardener and his mate are not getting results quick enough. He sends in a sort of full detachment of the army,
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
who then just try and fake it, and they're just like, "No,
yeah.
we'll just say we caught it. We'll just get."
Oh yeah, because you don't have to stitch it together and
Yeah,
use like
that's
some
right.
kind of taxidermy skills to like make a thing. I forgot all about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
how
he
did I
so he
miss that
makes a
bit?
great big like they take a
Yeah,
real wolf and then he sort of stuffs it and makes it into a
yeah,
large thing and
yeah,
present that to court and say, "Look, we solved it, problem solved."
yeah,
And then they suppress any further
yeah.
like reports. That scene actually, all of the stuff with that soldier and his and the army that come into town, all of that was deleted in the theatrical version. So that is only in the director's cut, which I found
Uh,
really surprising.
yeah, it's quite an important part.
Really,
What?
really important.
Yeah,
And it's quite important to like to Fronzak's like his motivations, him leaving town and sort of, you know, abandoning it. But in the way it plays out in the theatrical doesn't quite have as much of that element. Like he's not forced to do things in the same way. He
yeah.
just fails. And then in the director's cut, there's all of these like political machinations that sort of he has to kind of
Yeah,
betray himself a little bit.
there's a whole section of the movie which I was just like, what is happening here? Because spoilers, I might feel I have to give some spoilers away.
Oh yeah.
Um, all the main characters seem to get killed off. So like you get like Manny, the Native American, gets killed,
Mm,
and then Monica Bellucci's character, by the way, is incredible. She's like
yeah.
some like well, she's I guess she's disguised as a whore to start off with in
I
like
think so,
a
yeah. And then
brothel, and then you find out she's like an agent of the Vatican. Is that right? Or an
yeah,
agent of the
yeah, she's
king?
like a Vatican secret agent.
Yeah, yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah, I love it. Great.
Yeah, but yeah, so she ends up poisoning Fransard, and then the priest, what's his name? I did write it
Sardis.
down. Sardis, thank you. I
Yeah.
didn't think it was Sardis. It sounded a bit too like like Eastern, like Sard, no, like
Reminds
I
me
was
of
thinking
Zardoz.
Saladin. Yeah, Zardos. Yeah, he ends up trying to poison the love interest, Marianne,
Yeah.
and just like all this stuff happens. I was like, what's going to happen? Is it like the marquee character just takes over? I've never seen a film where it just kills off all the main characters about halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
The hell?
And I quite, yeah, because it's framed by the Marquis like he's telling the story.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's the potential that any of these characters could be dead.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it actually turns out that the plot from the Vatican to they don't like that all of this is happening in the name of like the Catholic Church and all of this sort
yeah,
of, you
yeah,
know, dodgy stuff, potentially chaotic activity that's trying to that is basically straying from what the church is trying to teach
yeah,
because they want their own power. They don't want the
yeah,
church's power. So that is why Monica Bellucci fake kills
Yeah.
Fronzak
Francais.
and
Yeah.
then brings him back to life, so that he can go on like a proper The Crow mission of vengeance and just take
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
everybody. He's just taking out all of these cultists all over the shop.
Yeah. He goes like full sort of like copies his man in the way
Yeah,
he
because
does
he
in
has like two
Painted.
major action scenes where he's the
Yeah.
one is when his Iroquois friend Manny has been killed, which I think is was actually pretty rough, and I thought that was a real shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also a shame that he's one of the only characters who does actually stay dead, which
Yeah. Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
real shame. Um, but then when he comes back from the dead, he then turns up to actually like bring down the cult proper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there's like
Some
another
great.
big action scene, and that's when the big sword gets involved and all
Yes,
that sort
yeah,
of
the
stuff.
bone
Right?
sword.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it was I keep saying front side, it's front sack. I don't know why I keep saying front
front
side.
sack. Yeah, I think it's front sack.
Front sack, yeah. Also there was like a little thing at the end which had made me like, is that because being a Sharp fan, I recognized the term loop being
Right.
wolf on the ship that they're sailing at the end. It's called Frere Loop, and I was like, just Frere means brother, doesn't it? I don't know.
Yeah,
Let me just write this into like Google search. I was like, oh yeah, brother wolf. Okay, good little sort of like
I
nod there to
like
Brotherhood of the Wolf.
yeah, because that's
Um,
one of the cool things about that. I think, and it's just a little thing, but is that for the whole film, it feels like the Brotherhood of the Wolf is this cult. Is like
yes, yeah,
they're the Brotherhood, they're the bad guys, and
yeah,
the Brotherhood of the Wolf is an evil thing.
yeah,
Really, it turns out that the Brotherhood of the Wolf was Fronsac and Manny, and they were brothers. They'd become blood
yeah.
brothers, and they were brothers with the wolves of the forest as well.
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah,
then
because they
like
come to help.
so the wolf exactly the wolves help. They bring down man. They help like find Manny's body and stuff like
Yeah,
that, and they come at the end and sort of get vengeance on
yeah.
Sardis and sort of kill
Yes,
him
yeah,
off
yeah.
to sort of
Rightly so.
to some
Oh, I've got to mention a bit about that scene when Sardis is running through the swampy bit when he's being chased
yeah.
by the wolves. I don't know why, but as soon as I saw that scene, it reminded me of the GM character from Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
The cartoon. Do you remember the cartoon?
I do. Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
he's in red robes. He's bald. He's got
yeah.
long hair. It's just like it just looked like that guy. I was just like, is this meant to be like based off that character? I don't know. It just looks so much like him. I forget what he's called. I don't know if he's the
I
game
think this is
master.
Dungeon Master. They just call.
Dungeon Master.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah,
Dungeon Master. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me of him. It was
I mean,
so
now that you
weird.
say that, maybe there's a bit of Avenger vibe to the main sort of sorcerer guy. He's kind of quite
Um,
tall and stoic and all that sort of thing.
yeah,
Who
yeah, yeah, yeah.
knows?
Yeah, I gotta say, shout out to the art as well, because when I was looking at that, the art in when they're looking through like
Mm.
Frontex drawings and stuff, it had lots of strong Frank Frazetta vibes as well, like the style that it was done in. But I was just like looking at it because big fan of like colors and drawings and pictures. I like coloring in, Jordan. I love coloring in. Um, and I was just like looking at the art, going, I wish they did a book on that. That would have been
Mm.
so good. Just like the style of sketch work that was done, whoever the artist was
Mm.
for the movie, just really nice sketch work in that sketchbook that he had.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big fan of like sketches like on parchment. Certainly when workshop would do those sort of autopsy style bits of
Yeah.
art, and almost sketchbook kind of like narrations. I really like Blood on the Reich, which had like loads of like Dave Gallagher art. I had a copy of that book that got borrowed at workshop and never got returned, so I'm very
No.
gutted about that. I don't it got there was a book there that didn't exist prior to me lending mine, that then had design studio written on the inside of it,
Oh
so I
no.
couldn't claim it as mine. But I knew mine was in there somewhere. But I love that book because that had loads of sketch work of like civilians characters for like the Empire. But I love that kind of like sketchbook sort of style. You get a big leather covered book and you open it through,
Yeah.
there's all these annotated notes and stuff. I've done that a few times with some of the old Vampire Count books as well.
Yeah. I was just looking to see because I've got the. Oh, here it is. Yeah, that's the special edition of the Blood on the Reich.
Yeah,
So that where
amazing.
you unbind it,
Beautiful.
and then it's like in a leather.
Yeah, I love that. I love
Absolutely
that.
stunning book.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best Warhammer Fantasy roleplay source books, even though there's hardly any
Mm.
words in it at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. Just
just the feel of the Empire, what it looks
yeah,
like to walk around the Empire.
yeah,
Absolutely
yeah.
incredible.
Just really insane. I mean, it was great for kit bashing when we're doing like unit fillers and stuff like that, because that's why I had it at work. because when I was doing the Empire Army, I wanted to like do some mad like kit bashes and conversions. And at the time, Dave Gallagher had done lots of the art for the insides of the heraldry book, because there was a bunch of guys that worked on like the because there was loads of digital assets. There was a team of like graphic designers. Neil Hodgson would do a lot of the art of all like the color plates of all like the different uniforms and stuff for like the different
Sure, yeah.
factions. But all the art for each of like the different states was done by Dave Gallagher. And there's a really nice bit at the start where you got this group of soldiers marching to war, and the very last page of them coming back and they're all disheveled. It's like little things like that. But yeah, like Dave Gallagher's style of art in there, mixed with the Blood on the Reich, was just
Mm.
really good for the like kit bashes and conversions for
Oh,
the
I can
Empire.
imagine that. Yeah, for
Don't know
sure.
how we got onto that subject, but yeah, I love looking
That's
at
it, because
sketches.
it's of like it feels like it's of that same sort, like broadly speaking,
Mm,
and especially it doesn't feel like even since there's been a lot of movies that kind of merge things in the same way that Warhammer does, where you do get a
yeah,
bit of history and a bit of horror and a bit of action and put it all together. That's, I think, why it feels very Warhammery to
yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah. It's
because
grim. It's grim.
because Warhammer is a genre mix. It
Yeah,
like grabs stuff from all over the place.
yeah. It's horror,
Mm.
space fantasy horror, really, isn't it? It's like and same with Warhammer. It's just like fantasy horror. There's no sort of like niceness about it. I mean, you can like if you go back to like the 90s and you got like the bright green goblin green bases and like the bright reds and stuff. It's a little bit more fun and
Mm.
light-hearted, but even then in the stories, it's still quite dark and
And some of the
gritty.
have as well from that
Yeah,
period.
yeah.
You've
Well, for
still
the
got
Blanche
some,
stuff, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I know what you mean. There's certainly a more, if you wanted it to be,
Mm.
which GW did want it to be for the sales, like it could be just a fun
Yeah,
frolic with these
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
humorous goblins and stuff like that. And you don't really need to think about the fact that they're killing each other.
yeah, yeah.
But then if you want to go deeper, even in the fourth and fifth edition, which are probably the brightest and friendliest of all the editions, there's still plenty of darkness
Mm.
beneath the surface there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. 100%. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Great
I
time.
guess this feels like a perfect segue into something very, very different to our second movie that we're going to talk about, which is, takes that kind of Goblin Green base
Yeah,
vibe,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And puts it all together with, again, with there's some darker stuff underneath the surface, but this is Flash Gordon, so the movie from 1980 that
Yep.
adapted the comics that first came out in 1934. This, I mean, a classic movie in many ways. Why did you want to chat about it in the
So
context of Warhammer?
there's a lot of things about Flash Gordon for me that have similarities to 40K, I think. So people will be like, no, it was taken from, there's lots of inspirations from Dune. Obviously, Starship Troopers had lots of like inspirations because there was the novel Starship Troopers where a lot of like the 40K stuff, which some people may know, some people may not know.
Hmm.
So a lot of inspiration was drawn from that. But when I was looking through, because I'm trying to remember back when Rogue Trader. When was Rogue Trader? It was 70s, was it? Was it the back end of the 70s or the mid 80s? I can't remember
Late
now.
80s, yeah.
Later, yeah. So obviously, Flash Gordon was out around that kind of time, probably before then. Obviously, if I'm getting my head now right in gear, you've got things like the Emperor Ming. He's like the all powerful being of like the universe.
Mhm.
It's like okay, that's cool. Yeah, he's a big bad. This guy is. He's got all these planets and armies and this that and the other. But there's like little bits for me that just sing 40K because you've got like the secret police, which feel like the Inquisition. So you got Clytus, and then his General Carla, who just like look very fashionable in the 80s style gear, but the idea behind him like being this secretive police force that would just like interrogate nastily, like and just get the information. But I think there's a couple of bits for me that and it's just a small thing. All the guys that are plugged in to the computer
Sure.
console, and then when like Flash Gordon or is it Flash Gordon? I can't remember now if it's the the professor when he takes the goggles off one and then they all just power down and die.
Sure.
It's like that feels very much like astropaths,
Mm.
like all plugged in to the system, very like Mechanicus as well.
Yeah,
But a big fan of that movie. Used to watch it loads, and it's got that kind of like science fantasy kind of vibe to it as well.
very
Got those
much so, yeah.
planets, lots of different outfits and uniforms. Very very camp, I guess. If you were to like give it a sort of that particular movie, it's got a very camp kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
But for me. when I was this is the whole reason why I picked it. One, it's my one of my favorite movies because I just love it. I love the colors. I know like some people's like it's not very sort of akin to the original Flash Gordon. I don't care because I kind of like it. I'm an 80s child and I was a big fan of it. I love the style of outfits. I love like the weird sort of like monsters that are in it.
Mm,
But like Ming's army was just so much fun to look at, so colorful, so interesting. But when I was conjuring up the ideas for a Imperial Guard army that I was working on at the time, I used a lot of Napoleonic references for like organizing the force and how I'd like mark them. But the color scheme itself was taken from the Imperial Navy, from Ming's army, which
right.
are the guys in the pink outfits with the black glossy helmets. I just added black glossy armor with gold trim, and that's how the Ventrilian nobles came into being, was because of the influences from Flash Gordon, like the outfits of like the Imperial Navy, certainly the officer cadre of the Imperial
Mm,
Navy. So if anyone's like, what is this? It's really hard sometimes trying to find like specific imagery, but there's a whole scene. War Rocket Ajax, also a great name for
mm.
a ship, War Rocket Ajax. And on it there's like a command crew, and they're all like these pink outfits with like black glossy helmets, and they've got these weird. I don't know if they're meant to be what Uranite or Saturnite or humanoid sort of troopers with these like gold skull masks with their stripy trousers. But yeah, a lot of like my eventually noble inspirations came from this scene when the Birdmen and Flash Gordon attack War Rocket Ajax. But yeah, there's just a lot of like, if you look at the Sisters of Silence, their ship, I forget what the ship's called now, their style of ship, but that sings to me like Flash Gordon
Yeah,
era, even the old 30s stuff as well, that kind of like classic
there's
rocket
a
ship.
lot. Yeah, yeah. There's a
And the
lot of that in Horus Heresy, I think now. You're
yeah,
totally
yeah.
right.
Yeah, so if you start looking for it, you start seeing like lots of like steampunky 30s Flash Gordon, even
Yeah,
some of the
kind of like
80s
Art
Flash Gordon.
Deco-y, slick lines, and it's a nice way to sort of differentiate 30K from 40K because
Yeah, yeah,
it's in a weird way, it's this retro futuristic. Like in 30K, it makes it looks older, but it also
yeah,
looks more sophisticated than what you will see in 40K, where everything's knackered because
yeah,
the
yeah,
golden age
yeah.
is long over and all that sort of stuff.
But yeah, you
Yeah,
look at some of the tanks, like some of the newer tanks they've been making with all those ornate sort of arches and stuff on it. That's got like almost War Rocket Ajax vibes to it.
yeah,
But yeah, obviously Ming the Merciless is just like a big bad,
yeah,
but he's the Emperor of the Galaxy, right? Or the universe in this sort of background. But yeah, the whole sort of I guess Ming's forces feel very um imperial
yeah,
empire imperium, because he's colonizing and taking over different planets and then just turning them into his very Roman Empire as well, which I guess like the 40K vibe has, like,
yeah,
they take over a planet, you have the chance to join us or die.
yeah,
And I guess that's the same for a lot of the planets and realms, I guess, because that's the thing I always found with like Flash Gordon. It wasn't really going from planet to planet. It was like this weird sort of like smoke space.
yeah.
There'll be like an area where there's Space Robin Hood with Timothy Dalton and their weird trees and the strange spider. I used to that whole scene with the spider and the tree trunk, by the
That's
way.
tense.
That is tense. And we used to play games when we were kids. We'd get like cardboard tubes and stick them into like a bin, and we'd take it in turns to like put our hands in it and stuff like that, see what we could feel in it. And then one of us would pretend we got bitten by the weird tree spider. But yeah, so many like things from that era, like that I used to do as a kid. But yeah, the whole realms was just, I guess that
Very
kind of feels
interesting.
very almost Age of Sigmar-y in a weird way.
Sort
That
of, yeah, just completely different. Like, but no, it's one of the things I most like about the film is because it does have all these like fantasy elements just right next to all of these science fiction elements.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
achieved through, yeah, the Hawkmen live in the skies
yeah,
above all of these clouds, under which there's like a sort of swamp forest where the Robin Hood guys live, and then
yeah, yeah.
Ming is just on a sort of space station in
It's
those same clouds
Yeah,
almost,
yeah,
but it
like
seems,
there's
or
like a
above
big
them.
sort of mountainous area and then there's massive city in this mountainous
Yeah, and then
area.
there's all that sort of, yeah. So there's like loads of like interaction between all these very different vibes and
Yeah,
styles. but then that kind of gives you it makes the universe feel quite vast and full of like
Mm.
infinite variety, which is really interesting and fun.
Yeah, I mean, like when you see like I guess when he's doing his football game, best soundtrack by the way as well for a
Oh,
movie.
sure.
It's
We'll come back
cool.
to the soundtrack. Yeah,
Yeah, but
absolutely.
when he does his weird football game in like Ming's palace, he's just got all these
Yes.
like random different. Because oh yeah, there's like, the whole sort of like giving gifts to Ming, and then like there's like this almost Zulu tribe,
Mm.
and the prince gets killed by Ming and whatever, and there's just like all these just flamboyant outfits all the way around. I'm like, who are these? I want to know who those are.
Yeah,
Who are,
they're
it's
intriguing.
just
Yeah.
yeah, like the lizard man with the weird eyes in the mouth. I'm just like, what's that
Yes.
about? Why has he got eyes in his mouth? That makes no sense. But I guess that's costume as well of that era, like the 80s, just going real full mad. But I also really like that because it's got. I'm also a big fan of Krull, so it has like Krull vibes in a way, and I guess sort of Masters of the Universe
Yeah.
sort of vibes to it as well. So there's a lot of things that like I really like about these movies because they're from my era, but again, like being a big part of my life for a long time, and also a movie I watch quite regularly.
Mm.
Yeah, drawing inspiration for like 40K and adding like my own stamp on 40K with the Venturely Nobles being inspired by Flash Gordon, kind of was just accidental, I guess. I just really
Mm.
like pink and black together. Pink and black look really nice, which is, I guess, why the Emperor's Children in 40K have pink and black. Really good color choice.
Sure.
But yeah, more magenta, I suppose, for the Venturely Nobles. But yeah, inspired by, not copied by.
But
Um,
that is one of the things I love because and this is I think true across like the whole history of Warhammer just generally is how like movies can intersect with it, and it's obviously not the only art form that intersects with this stuff. People are drawing inspirations from books and music and whatever else as well.
mm,
I think movies being such an certainly in the UK and in America have long been very a big part of pop culture, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
And you can feel oftentimes you can feel how a load of different movies have influenced the creation of something in just tiny little ways. And exactly like you say, there's just like a drawing a little bit of inspiration here and here and here, putting it all together to create something new that then inhabits the 40K universe or
yeah,
Warhammer Fantasy. And like all of these different influences create something new and different. Like they're more
yeah,
than the sum of all those parts. And that's what one of the things that I really love about the history of Warhammer is tracing some of that and being like, oh, it looks like maybe this inspired that, and maybe that like whoever has created this faction or written this army's book was clearly sort of in dialogue with this movie that they loved. And then
yeah.
they've sort of drawn ideas from. I think that's cool. I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if I spent some time thinking about it, I could like pull out quite a few different inspirations from
Mm,
different people I worked with. They're like really into certain movies. I know like Duncan was a big fan of like Final Fantasy, and he did like Imperial Guard conversions of like the Shinra Corporation and stuff like that. And
right.
he did all sorts of kit bashes, and whether they never made it to like any kind of publication, but he used them a lot,
Mm.
which then maybe have inspired like some of the things that I did. I mean, I did like a whole load of Imperial Guard that were like based off GI Joe. Like yeah, I did like with troopers in like blue outfits or like Neo Vipers or like just normal Vipers and stuff like that, and then just going through like the different sort of colors and outfits for like different officers and this, that, and the other. But yeah, a lot of these would never be shown because they're quite blatant
Mm.
with some of the inspirations, but there are others that are a little bit more subtle in their sort of like execution, where if you knew, you knew; if you didn't, you're just like it's just a thing.
Yeah,
And I guess that did have a detrimental effect to Workshop to a certain degree as well during the Chapter House
of
investigations,
course.
because obviously, if people don't know, like there was a company making resins based off like kits that Workshop didn't make, so they could be upgrade sets and like things that people could buy, and obviously Workshop would want to make them at some point. So there was this whole sort of like legal court battle. But then what that did was like there was this whole team that came round the studios to check to see what we had to remove all sorts of non-workshop resources from our
Really?
desks. So anything that like even Osprey books weren't allowed. We had to remove all our Osprey books. Anything that was like not Games Workshop had to be removed. in case these people came around to check. But it's like, but that's how games are made. You're inspired by stuff,
Mm,
but it's not because of the court case, because it's like, well, you're inspired by Star Wars, so you can't say that you can make these models because they're inspired by this. So these
sure.
guys are okay to make their thing. It was a lawsuit that obviously failed. I'm kind of glad it did to a certain degree because it was the small guy winning over the big guy.
Mm,
Because really, Workshop weren't making those things and never intended to.
sure.
But it was more of like a power play. But at the same time, it's like it was unnecessary. But the legal team really screwed that up.
Mm,
But like there was like not presenters, sculptors like Jez Goodwin had to go and stand in court in the States and talk about stuff, and because he made Space Marines with like Bob Naismith and
yeah.
whatever. But yeah, it all panned out that we couldn't have any kind of like non-Games Workshop resource on our desk, which in a way I think has had a massive detrimental effect on a lot of the stuff you see nowadays.
Right.
Because a lot of people that sorry, this has got off on a weird tangent, but a lot of
Interesting.
people that bring in their knowledge of Workshop only know Workshop.
Right.
So it's becoming a bit inbred is the way I'd want to use as the terminology. So when people are looking at like expanding the universe of Workshop, they're using Workshop resources as opposed to in the early days, like all the people you interview had to have some kind of knowledge and history. And this is something I learned from Thomas Perrinan when he came on to Jugs, was like you had to have at least one historical military sort of subject that you were strong in.
Right.
And then when you'd work through White Dwarf, and then you'd be like you'd do every job in White Dwarf, so you understood how publications are made, but you also had to have a strong historical sort of background on something. So for me, it would be Napoleonics. For like Thomas Perrin, and it would have been like, I don't know, I can't remember. He knew lots of stuff, but like Dave's really into Rome and Dave's really into World War II. Dave Andrews, that is.
Right.
So they all brought something to the table. Whereas nowadays, there's very little of that. They're only recycling what came from Workshop before. So
Right.
there's no sort of like new, because like when I did the Vengefully Nobles,
Right.
Vengefully Nobles is a great example. It's like I used my knowledge of Napoleonics, but also drawed inspiration from Flash Gordon
Mm,
to make something very 40k.
sure.
Um, and that's like inspired by a thing that existed, a thing which was the Napoleonic Wars, and how units are, you know, made and how
Yeah.
a regiment would look, and identifying like cavalry, infantry, whatever. And then you've got like really wacky sci-fi movie like Flash Gordon. Those two things come together and make their own very unique thing using
Sure.
like Games Workshop parts, like Empire heads on Cadian bodies, with a color choice inspired by. So I think like with the chapter house thing and like this whole sort of like removing resources and inspirations from desks, I think has had like quite a detrimental effect on some of the inspirations. There's a lot of people still work at Workshop that have all that stuff at home,
Sure.
that will still use that as inspiration, like Forge World. Lots of historical fans in there, lots of
Sure.
historical fans in the sculpting team, and they're still
I
there
think you
now. Like,
still see a lot of like filmic references
yeah,
across a lot of Forge
yeah,
Worlds.
yeah, yeah,
Necromunda's a great example of
yeah.
there's
Oh,
so much
absolutely,
stuff
yeah,
that feels like, okay, that's that is doing a cool 40k version or like take on something that exists elsewhere in pop
yeah,
culture.
yeah. Well, I mean, you take like I know it got a bit of a bad rep, but like the latest sort of chaosy warband for Underworlds,
Right.
and like Louise did a video on it
Sure,
because
the
like
the like the savage guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I look at those and I see the tribesmen that they fight quite early on in the new Conan movie
Right.
with Jason Momoa. I looked at those and I was like, they feel like those guys, that tribe of like guys that attack
Right.
the kids when they're like doing their trial with the egg in the mouth kind of thing, which obviously you see more of later on in the movie anyway. But it's okay to be inspired by as long as you're not
Yeah.
like ripping off.
I think it's where some
Um,
of the best stuff comes from because it is
yeah,
in dialogue. It's not, you're not necessarily ripping stuff off if you're having a conversation with that other stuff. If you're going,
yeah,
okay, you've taken a really cool idea in that direction. I want to take it in a different direction, but it's still coming from similar roots or the same sort of inspiration, which I think
yeah,
is fantastic. And that it does add a huge amount because it also makes things sort of more understandable and
yeah,
relatable.
yeah, yeah,
Like if you're
absolutely.
coming to the world, if you're coming to 40k and you can see things that are reminiscent of things you know from elsewhere, that's a good like hook in to say, oh, okay, well, I sort of understand. I mean, even down to Space Marines are like crusading knights,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So if
yeah,
you have any familiarity with, the pop culture conception of crusading knights. Maybe not the real historical
Yeah, yeah,
crusading knights,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like the idea of okay, knights on a quest, on a crusade to quote unquote do good across the universe. I sort of understand what a space marine is now, and then I
Yeah,
can sort
yeah.
of put that alongside and understand the rest of the universe from it.
And then you scratch at the surface and go, oh, yeah, they're actually quite bad, aren't they?
Yes, yeah,
Which is
exactly.
also the point.
Sure,
Because,
exactly, right,
like if you go
exactly.
for with the Crusades, like back in the day,
Yeah.
people like it's a glorious thing. We're going to go and fight the heathen. We're going to go to the Jerusalem, the city of Jesus, and we're going to fight off these bad guys. It's like that's the propaganda that's been passed on to people, which is the same as the propaganda passed on to like the imperial citizenry. But the
Mm,
reality is, it's like we're just going to murder people that don't agree with us.
sure.
It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
cool, wicked,
Well, like
fine.
Ming is going to exterminate us the planet Earth
Yeah, exactly.
just for the sake of it. He's
Yeah,
just like,
because
yeah, okay.
don't like that guy in that weird t-shirt. It's weird.
Yeah. I mean,
I was
unfortunately, we're having him explain them. Not that there's a big plot to actually deal with,
no.
but it literally is Flash and a couple of friends find themselves teleported across to, or they take a rocket through into Ming's base and his home planet. Ming's
Yeah,
about to destroy the planet Earth. So what is it? 14 hours. Flash has
something
got
like that. Yeah,
something
yeah.
along those lines to save
Yeah,
the Earth,
24 hours to save the Earth or something like that.
and that's it.
But
And then they just
yeah.
run about a bit and try and get allies.
Yeah, because it's quite accidental. Because obviously Ming's just like, I don't like these people. Let's just destroy the planet. They're a
Yeah.
nuisance, and that's kind of like just like a narration talking over. I forget the actor that plays Ming. He's such a great actor, Max.
Max von Sydow.
Thank you. Yeah, he's done
Yeah.
so much,
Brilliant.
so much. But he basically that's the movie's just like don't like Earth, gonna blow it up, and then like Flash Gordon's in a jet with like some other people. The pilots get sucked out. He somehow lands it, crashes into like a scientist who's got a rocket who knows about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Come on, get in. We're gonna go and fight Ming." He was like, "What is going on?" And it's just a bit of a wild journey, but it's good fun. It's like one of
Yeah.
those sort of like Saturday afternoon movies that you
Mm.
could just keep eating popcorn to. But there's one scene in it that just really freaked me out as a child, and I think it gets removed nowadays from if you watch it on like a streaming service or whatever. But if you get like the DVD,
Right.
when that it's a cool scene at the end. So there's like this the Hawkmen. So Brian Blessed's Hawkmen, they've got their flying, hovering city, but there's like this sort of trial by combat
Hmm.
disc that moves around in the center, and then the odd spike comes out of it to make it a little bit more difficult. So not only have you got this disc that spins and moves with a bottomless drop below it, but also spikes come out from time to time just to really add that extra level of difficulty to that like one-on-one arena match. And there's a bit where obviously Flash Gordon bests Clytus, the gold masked Skeletor character. And when he lands on the spike, because he somehow kills him, and then his face basically gets these spikes go through it, and his eyes come out on stalks, and all this yellow goo comes out of his mouth and his eyes. Freaked me out as a child. Absolutely freaked me out. And
Wait,
melting General Kala as well. Just like really attractive female warrior woman in like a tight outfit gets shot by Timothy Dalton and then just melts into black goo. I was like, what? What's going on with this movie right now? One
yeah,
guy gets his eyes pulled out and everyone dies, and then she gets melted. It's like
there is a
insane.
lot of just like random, and because it is kind of playful, good, and it's very vibrant and over the top kind of action and violence. But
Mm.
yeah, there's loads of fights. I mean, there is the silly stuff like he does. So at that court scene when everyone's presenting their gifts to Ming, Flash ends up using some of his world famous American football skills to do like a really weird fight against the custodes
Yeah.
of Ming,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and you just have a really weird like they sort of are playing American football, but not quite. It's very odd.
Yeah.
I did quite
Yeah.
like as well that Brian Blessed is just like whenever he gets the chance, he can knock one of the guards
Yeah.
out when no one's looking. That's quite fun.
Yeah, yeah, it is an interesting scene. Obviously, that hit hard with like the Queen soundtrack all the way through. So I
Incredible.
don't think I've ever known another movie that has just the same pop group or musical group
Well, I think
that
Queen
just
did.
does the whole score.
They did a
Everything is
couple
by
of
Queen.
songs for the Highlander. movie as well. So
They did, yeah, but not. Was the whole soundtrack Queen as well?
they did at least two songs and the sort of two major
Yeah,
moments.
yeah,
But
that's
you're right.
true.
Maybe they didn't do the sort of score stuff in between.
Yeah, I just can't think of any other like singer, pop group, band
I'm sure it's
that's.
happened, but
It must have done. Yeah,
it's
let us
so
know. Let
effective
us
in
know in the
Flash Gordon.
comments.
The opening scene or the opening credits rather, which they kind of do what Marvel Comics like Marvel Studios did, where you sort of have the flipping through the comic books and
Yeah,
they're looking at the original Flash comics, but then it's intercut with some real footage, and then you also have the Queen Flash Gordon song. That is such a good, like the
yeah,
energy and
yeah,
excitement, the anticipation that comes from that opening scene is
yeah.
incredible, absolutely
You,
amazing.
you know when things going to kick off when you get the dun 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 dun.
Yeah,
You're like, oh, it's going to kick off now. It's going to kick off now. He's flying through some clouds. War Rocket Ajax is coming. There's some Birdmen, and then you're getting dun 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 dun. Dun. You're like, oh yeah.
There is. I mean, are you familiar with some of the sort of behind the scenes production of the movie? Because I
Not
found some of
really,
this
no.
fascinating.
Oh, interesting. No, please do tell. I mean,
So,
I've obviously watched it loads, and I've not really listened. I should listen to the director's commentary and stuff like that, but I never really did. I just like watching Flash Gordon.
it's just dead interesting to me, like the people who ended up involved with it. So
Mm.
it got the comic books were optioned by like a super famous Hollywood producer, Dino De Laurentiis, who did loads
Mm.
and loads of stuff.
He did
But
June, didn't he? Did he do June?
yeah, he did do June as well.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, and just a huge amount of like some are really successful, some not so successful. But he optioned the rights to the comic books so that his friend Federico Fellini, the
Mm.
Italian, like incredible sort of very art house artistic film director, so that because
Mm.
Fellini used to translate the Flash Gordon comics into Italian. That was one of his early jobs. So he loved Flash
Amazing.
Gordon and he
Yeah.
wanted to make a Flash Gordon movie. And this is a guy who's, like some of his movie, La Dolce Vita and Eight and a Half and stuff like that, regarded by like people who study film as some of the best films ever made. Absolutely stunning stuff. So he's going to do this Flash Gordon movie, but then it sort of didn't come together.
Mm.
So then after Star Wars had come out, all of a sudden Dino De Laurentiis is like, oh my god, we need to make a move on this super
Yeah.
quick. Like we've got to rush
Yeah.
it into production. So that's why they then sort of very quickly made this film. But the writer that they got in was a guy who was Lorenzo Semple Jr.,
Mm.
who wrote for the Batman TV show from the 60s.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's the camp element, maybe.
Right. So certainly the camp element. But then he also wrote Papillon and The Parallax
Oh.
View and 3 Days of the Condor, which are like,
Oh.
intensely political or like,
Yeah.
thrilling movie. I was just like, that is wild to me. And then the
Yeah.
director directed Get Carter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just like, this is a wild
What a
like, but
mix.
how on earth all of these guys came together to make this movie? Because I don't think you could have predicted the film would
Yeah.
look and feel the way it does
Yeah. Yeah.
based on what happened to sort of get it to be created in the first
That's
place.
insane.
It's really
Yeah.
wild.
Didn't know that. No,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, just like really people you would not expect to like sit side by side in like a pub.
Sure, yeah.
Are all like coming together to make this one movie, which I think even now still has quite a strong following. I mean, like if you look at
Yes,
the movie Ted, I know
of
like
course.
Ted does lots of references for Flash Gordon and stuff, but so many. I mean, I've an old colleague, my old manager from Workshop Derby, and we talk from time to time. Flash Gordon, big fan of that. It's interesting. Like it is in like a certain demographic of the hobby. Certainly, I guess my generation would have watched that a fair bit during
Mm.
like the 80s and stuff. So it's in there, and certainly like other sculptors, rules writers, games developers from that period as well would have been inspired by it, or at least watched it. I wouldn't say many would be like me, say it's the best movie ever made, but they probably would have watched it and enjoyed it because it
Yeah.
is one of those movies where you don't go in expecting a deep, subplot, lots of like political intrigue and lots of
Mm.
like plate spin in the background. It's like, this is very thought provoking. It is just like it's just going to get a footballer to fight like an emperor, of the universe with his skills and some guts. And yeah, we'll chuck in James Bond from
Yeah.
that era, and
Yeah.
then and Brian Blessed. Why not? It's like
Dalton
make it,
is really good as like the Baron, like because
yeah.
he's, I mean, almost is like in terms of the Vincent Cassel performance in Brotherhood of the Wolf. Like
Yeah,
they both
yeah,
start off as these like both aristocratic, and they both have a certain look, and they both got like there's a bit of a disdain for the
yeah,
hero. Um, but obviously in this case, it then ends up, by the end of the movie, the storyline, the arc is that Flash wins over the Baron. They even though they
yeah, yeah,
fight, and
yeah,
they do have that incredible, like you were saying before, the scene where they've got to put their hand into this
yeah,
stump,
yeah,
and then there might be some creature in there, or there might not, and it's kind of like a test of wills, which is
yeah, yeah,
fantastic. But yeah, you get to a place where the Baron actually is like a good guy, and he's on side with Flash, and then
yeah,
together they bring over Brian Blessed as well and get him
yeah,
to like
yeah,
team up. So you
yeah,
have all of the so you get one of these really fun things where like loads of different factions come together to fight together at the end of the
yeah.
movie against the bad guy, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, the Hawkman scene fighting War Rocket Ajax was always like a good scene
It's
for me. I
great.
always felt, yeah, I feel really bad when like some of the Hawkmen get shot down and stuff. But again, I mean, the name maybe not so, because they're the Birdmen of Katrazza, but the
Hmm.
idea behind the Birdmen of Katrazza is very sort of like
Yeah,
Hawkmen of like Flash Gordon, because they've got like those wing like,
that's a
contraptions
great
and stuff.
point. Yeah,
Yeah, so there's like, you see some things in like Warhammer Fantasy as well as like Warhammer 40,000 that has like those Flash Gordon vibes to it.
yeah.
Certainly the color, I think I do wonder now, because there was a period where Games Workshop was quite dirty and grimy and Blanchian with
Hmm.
some of the older stuff. Then it moved into the bright sort of green, red, yellows, vibrant blues. And I do wonder if that kind of falls in like, because that's kind of like mid 80s, early 90s that happens.
Right.
That's a few years after Flash Gordon, but I do wonder if like movies start to move into that more color spectrum, and then that kind of influences it a bit more, because
I think
it was a
it's
very colorful movie.
very colorful, and I think yeah, for that again, for that like fourth and fifth edition Warhammer era, and
Mm.
like second edition 40k, that was like they wanted it to be more accessible. They wanted it to be more family friendly, and I think they are reaching for the same thing that this Flash Gordon movie is reaching
Yeah,
for.
yeah,
That is why it's colorful, and
yeah,
it's in contrast to a family movie like Star Wars. This is kind of doing it in a way that's kind of like, well, let's make it look and feel a bit more like a cartoon and give it that,
yeah. No,
like you say,
agreed. Yeah,
Saturday morning sort of feel.
yeah.
There is a direct connection between Flash Gordon and Games Workshop as well,
Is they?
in the form of Richard O'Brien.
Of course. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
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 Richard
yeah,
O'Brien is in the movie. He's one of the Barons, one of Timothy Dalton's like right hand men.
yeah. I forgot about him being in that.
Yeah, he's not in it very much, but it's fun. He
Yeah,
just has a cool little role. And obviously, Richard O'Brien would go on to be on the Crystal Maze, the
Crystal
first
Maze.
host of
Yeah,
the Crystal Maze, which is
yeah,
fantastic. And Games Workshop designed a number of the challenges and
yeah,
puzzles for
yeah,
the Crystal
yeah.
Maze.
I think they did most of them. They did
For the
industrial
first
and
like two seasons, I think they did
yeah,
the majority, if not all, of the games and the puzzles. Yeah,
yeah. Wild, isn't
which
it?
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I always forget about that little fun fact. And when someone mentions Crystal Maze, I'm always like, oh yeah, Games Workshop did a lot of stuff there. It was
Yeah,
before my time. Obviously not as a hobbyist, but as like a staff member, it was definitely way before my time. But I think Dave Andrews might have did some stuff on that, and like some of the guys in the studios.
yeah, and Jervis Johnson
Um,
as well.
Jervis, yeah, of course, the mighty Jervis.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of greats. I think that no longer there now, like
mm.
through like moving on to doing other stuff. There's a handful still left, but yeah, it's yeah, Games Workshop's core
Mm.
beginnings have now like started to peter off into not obscurity, just their own thing. Like, you got Andy Chambers, Gav
Mm.
Thorpe doing their own game systems now, and you got like Jervis just like knocking like great rule systems out for different companies and things.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting, but missing
But
a
then
good
that's
part.
how the sort of that's one of the many amazing legacies
Yeah,
of
yeah,
GW and Warhammer is just it created. I mean, we're now multiple generations of like talent that have grown up in
yeah,
the
yeah.
design studio and around Games Workshop, doing all kinds of different roles, and then have moved off into all this other stuff and kind of
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's
I forgot. I'm just going to say this because it's an extra
mm.
little bit of trivia, an addendum to that
Oh,
Fellini thing
I
that I
love trip.
forgot to
Yeah, 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 yeah,
mention.
yeah.
Was just that there is a reference in the movie to that whole story, which is that so Deep Roy, the actor who plays the Oompa Loompas in the
Yes. Yeah.
Charlie
Yeah.
and the Chocolate Factory, he's in the movie as the
Yeah.
pet of the princess, and the pet is called Fellini. So there's just like a nod to
Uh,
that sort of prehistory of the creation. But I think that is very, like, that kind of feels, all of that court stuff, and the princess in particular feels very sort of Ian Watson 40k to me. Like,
mm,
there is a real weird, there's the sort of like that vibe that you get in some of his Inquisitor stories and like his
yeah.
Space
Yeah.
Marine book and stuff like that, where things are a little bit odd, and there's a little bit of eroticism in there and strange sort of
Yes.
perversion.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
just that hint, even though this is a family movie, there's that hint of it
Yeah. Yeah.
in that character in particular, I think, which
No.
is
No. Yeah.
also a bit like fun connection.
I see that, and I guess that was the idea, was to make a quite alluring and stuff like
Yes.
that, and like the love interest of like Flash Gordon, but not because actually he was more into I forget her name now. Jesus, I had it in my head like literally yesterday.
I forgot. Yeah,
Dale.
right.
But yeah, it's like that's who actually is interesting. But obviously Timothy Dalton's character is like, no, that's the princess is my
Yes.
bit on the side. Thank you very much. And it's like, I'm not interested. She's interested in me. I'm not interested in her. I've got Dale. Strange love, not even a love triangle. It's just like two guys just like getting very mixed up.
Yeah, two
Signals.
parallel straight lines
Yeah.
of yeah.
Yeah, it's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. But yeah, it's a fun movie. If you've never
Yeah.
watched it, I would say you probably might not like it. You might waste a good hour and a half of your life, but lots happens in a short space of time.
It does,
Um,
and I think the moral of the story and the moral of a lot of the comics as well is that, like, one of the reasons that Fellini really liked it was because of how explicitly like anti-fascist the Flash Gordon stories were. Like, Ming,
yeah,
is this fascist dictator, and it was coming out at a time. This is the 30s and the 40s. These were coming
yeah,
out at a time when that was extremely important, and I
yeah,
think the
yeah,
film does a good job, it buried within the heart of this cartoony sort of
yeah,
tale
yeah,
of retaining that. Like, it really is explicitly about how, Ming's politics and the way he rules is not acceptable, and that Flash as a good, because I really like the sort of earnest, like this version of Flash, the Sam J. Jones Flash that's in this movie. He's almost like a Superman character in the sense that he's just a really good guy.
yeah,
He
yeah, yeah.
does the
All
right
American
thing.
hero kind of thing
Yeah,
as
he
well,
is
isn't
the
he?
all-American hero, and he does the right
Yeah,
thing because it's the right thing to do. He doesn't need any
yeah,
more justification than that. Even if it puts him in danger, even if it's going to be a challenge for him to do it, he will do it because it's the right thing to do.
yeah, yeah.
And I
There's
think
that whole
that's
bit
a
where
great message.
he's been interrogated or tortured by Clytus,
Mm.
and there's like some footage being put over, and there's obviously like the Hitler's black and white
Yeah,
footage and
yeah,
like
yeah.
him marching, and like Clytus is like, yes, he showed true promise. A
Yes.
shame. It's just like, and then you can see like Flash Gun's like, what, Nazis? Need to punch more Nazis.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and
this
like
is
the
not.
professor, because they're trying to brainwash the professor and like erase
Yeah,
his memory. And he's like, no, I held on to my humanity, and they
yeah,
couldn't brainwash that. And
yeah,
like that,
yeah.
that's great. It's the triumph of the human spirit, I think, is the
Mm,
ultimate message of the
yeah,
film. And even if it can be very cheesy at times,
yeah, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
great
But
still.
yeah,
And then I do love the ending as well, which, it sort of ends with, like, because they win, and then you
yeah,
get the sort of almost the servo skull style like orb that's sort of
yeah,
floating around that had been a bad guy earlier on. Now sort of says the message. It basically puts the message out. Oh yeah, Ming is dead. All is
yeah.
well. You guys have done it. And then you just get Flash just like leaps up to the camera and it's just like, yay!
It's like is it
It's
Street
great.
Fighter at the end of it? Street Fighter where they do like the jump up. But
Sure.
there's a bit as well. There's a bit there at the very end. You've got, I think it's the very end of the credits or whatever.
Mm.
You've got like the Ming's ring
Yes.
on the floor, and it's like dusty, and then you hear like a insidious laughter, and then Ming's hand picks it back up again, which goes to prove that if you kill the Emperor of Mankind, he will just come back. Come through. He's a I keep want to say paternal. That's not the word. Word where someone's like keeps coming back. What are they called?
The perpetual.
Perpetual, thank you. Thank you. That's the
Yeah.
word. Perpetual motion. Perpetual. Not paternal. It's very different.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I
not very
think this is
paternal.
interesting. This is a very strong theory, I think. You're putting the theory of the case that Ming the Merciless is the actual emperor of
Yeah, yeah.
mankind in
Yeah,
40k.
yeah.
I think that bears further study.
Well,
I'm gonna agree.
he's a bit of a meanie, isn't he? He's a bit of a meanie, and the Emperor's a bit of a meanie. Wears gold, likes red. So does wear pink from time to time. He has some good outfits, actually,
He
Max
does. Yeah, he looks
does.
great.
Very, very good. Digging it. And classic as well. I mean, like, that is very, like the forked beard, the mustache, very evil.
Yes.
So like really digging that kind of like evil vibe. The skull cap as well. That's very interesting. Got Merlin vibes too.
Yeah, that's true.
And that could just be Excalibur's Merlin though, doing that,
I get what you mean. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
as
yes,
opposed to
because he wears the sort of the silver cap, doesn't he? That sort of
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So maybe that's just me getting inspired by 80s movies again. Also, a great movie, Excalibur. Might have to be
Absolutely.
one to
Yeah,
look at. Well, that is
yeah.
a good movie, actually. That feels very Flash Gordon in a way, with some of the shots and some of like the goldy bits and
Yeah,
like
in
the
some
weird scene.
ways, I think. I mean, yeah, because you do also have like some really striking like costume design in
Mm,
Excalibur, which is really fantastic. But I think Excalibur bears its own entire discussion because I
it
think
does. Yeah, I don't
it
want to
has
ruin that for someone
a
else.
fantastic influence in many ways on Warhammer over the years.
Yeah, yeah. I know Dave Andrews uses that as a reference for a lot of things when we used to talk about stuff,
Right.
Excalibur. So I might have to
I
pick his
can
brains
believe
about
it.
that.
I can absolutely believe it. Yeah. Well, maybe in a future season, we'll come back and talk about Excalibur
Yeah.
and get into it in another episode down the line.
Well,
But
maybe when Dave retires, you can ask him about it. I'm
well,
sure he's
absolutely
got.
a
Yeah,
conversation definitely
yeah.
worth having
Sure, he's
there.
got. He definitely. I remember him like when we used to sit in the studios and we used to be like painting, and he was like making like Witch Fate tours out of like plastic card and God knows what. We'll just have like weird conversations and all sorts of stuff. He said more stuff that I've forgotten. That guy knows so much stuff. It's
Well, I mean, you talk
incredible.
about like original hands and the guys who have been there since the start, and I think Dave is one of the unsung
Yeah,
heroes involved in so much stuff. His name is
yeah,
on so many products, doing so many different roles as well. Like he's been
yeah, yeah.
involved
He's
across the design
everything.
studio
Yeah, he
through
never
the
wanted to
years.
be a manager, which I completely respect, because that's not what he's into. He wants to,
Mm.
crafty, use his hands and stuff. But fun fact, if no one knows this, and a fair few people in the studio know it, it was Dave Andrews that made Orcs green, because up to that point, they were very sort of like, I guess, Mordor orky kind of skinned
Sure,
tones.
like
It's
lots of
like
different
just
colors, right?
lots of different colors. So if you
Yeah.
look at like some of the older orcs, they're all like different colors. It was Dave Andrews that suggested they all become greenskins. And because I think he might have painted his army in that way as well, and then used it as reference. But yeah, it was him, the master behind the
There you go.
greenskins. Fun
Amazing.
fact.
Yeah, I mean that is no small thing. Like that's
No,
so influential.
yeah, which would then come to play in things like Warcraft
Yes.
and other sorts of like
Well, I think the
fantasy.
common conception of an orc now is somewhere like on a sort of green,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the spectrum of green colors.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you
Yeah,
look at most sort of like fantasy games that they're
across the
kind of
board.
like big teeth, pointy ears, bit gnarly looking, green skinned.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is fun.
amazing.
I love this. This was great. Thank you for one getting me to watch Brotherhood of the Wolf, which was a great watch. It was giving me so much inspiration for Silver Bayonet.
Oh, good.
So that's like I do see the and I totally get the Mordheim references, but also just having I didn't really touch much on the Ventrally Nobles. It was just like a very small section of the movie just inspired me to do Ventrally Nobles from Flash Gordon.
Which is
That's
incredible. Yeah.
random, very random. But no, it's been great. Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate
Fantastic.
it.
Well, thank you again, Peachy. It's been a really terrific conversation. And thank you all at home for joining us as well. And hopefully, there'll be more Warhammer Film Club in the future. Thank you again for joining me and my wonderful guest Peachy from Peachy Tips. If you would like to support the show, you can join patreon.com/Jordan Sorcery, where you'll get early access and exclusive content, including a research article about the links between Brotherhood of the Wolf and Warhammer history. This was the last episode in the current season of the Warhammer Film Club, but I'll be back before long with a seasonal special. And if you'd like to see more of the show in the future, let me know in the comments and on Patreon. Until next time.